Welcome to Writer's Block. I'm Rex. He's Lav. Lav, it's been an eventful few days. This is actually the last Writer's Block that we will do before you and I will be together, right? At the PGA Championship?
That's not true. We'll be doing a writer's block on Saturday night before we both depart for Tulsa.
Sunday night before we leave. Yeah, you're right. That makes
Second to
more sense.
last. This is the penultimate writer's block before the year's second major.
And we'll give a shout out at the end of this to Haley, who decided not to be on today, but we'll wait for that. Those honors. Like I said, big news week, Lav. The tour's decision to deny releases for the first LIV Golf event for any of the members who had requested. Fill in that blank for me. What's your read on this?
I think this is the start, Rex, of golf's civil war. And if that sounds dramatic, I mean, this is an existential threat to what has been the most dominant professional circuit over the past 50 years. And Jay Monahan making that decision to deny the conflicting event release, with the Telegraph then reporting on Wednesday that DP World Tour Chief Executive Keith Pelley is planning to do the same. You are going to have players who defy these tours and play regardless, potentially subjecting themselves to some discipline from either the PGA or the DP World Tour. That is anticipated. I think the question is how many you will see do that. Will there be some sort of mass punishment for all of these guys? But this is basically just expedited what we already plan to see with this litigation. It's probably just a couple of weeks before we intended to do so with that first event in Portland.
You used a lot of words. What word fills in the blank, though? I must have missed that one. Your word was what?
Was the start of golf civil war. I filled in the blank.
Oh, wow. All right. That's quite a bit of a mouthful.
It's a phrase. It's a phrase.
I got it. All right. I went with preemptive because I think on this particular front, it's Jay Monahan following through on his promises, right? He's been very, very clear on this. They were going to draw a hard line when it came to this tour. Certainly, I think we were expecting this one to be granted because there was precedent set. They've let players chase money overseas for decades now. It's what they've allowed to do. This is sort of the formula. I think what they saw was the writing on the wall. They knew that the next four were going to be in the United States. They knew that the season finale for that LIV Golf series was going to be in Miami. There's no way they could allow that. They weren't going to allow that. There's no way they could allow that. So I think this is just the tour and Jay Monahan getting out in front and saying, look, you want to fight? We'll fight you. Like this is where
Norman Rex had essentially billed these right as one-offs, and if the Westwoods and the Phils wanted to go play one but not play the other, that's totally fine. You can come and go as you please. Jay Monahan instead saw this for what it really is, which is the start of a tour in the making, and you had to nip it in the bud now and essentially get the lawyers' billable hours started.
And it's on brand. Again, this goes back to he doesn't want the distractions, that he feels like this is over. So if you really want to move in that direction, this is the only way to do it. And we're going to a lawsuit, as you just pointed out. It just fast-tracked all of the legal process to the point that, okay, someone is going to tee it up. You mentioned how many. I don't think it matters how many. All they need is one. And I think all they need is one that you probably wouldn't even expect. It's probably going to be a name, and you're going to kind of shake your head like, well, why in the world would that person do that? And why would it spark this? Because all they need is one tour member to defy this release and to go over, put a peg in the ground and hit that first tee shot, and everything's going to follow from there. And it's going to be years. We're going to be talking about this for a long time, but this was, in my opinion.
But what is that first event going to look like, Rex? Because PGA Tour players now face either a fine, suspension, permanent ban, whatever. DP World Tour players essentially are facing the same fate. This field could be grotesque for the first one in London. I mean, it's 48 players. You're going to have some guys who basically are making either a personal or a professional decision to risk that for what? A guaranteed payday of at least $120,000? It'd be a huge risk competitively.
And we've gone over this. Sergio Garcia's comments last week at the Wells Fargo Championship. You don't know the context. Like, we don't know anything else that was going on inside the heart of Sergio Garcia in this, other than he didn't like the ruling he was getting. But when he says that I'm going to be so happy when I'm done with this tour in 2 weeks, that coincides with the PGA Championship. You would think that's what he was talking about. I can imagine that a player like Sergio, and I don't know that he would be alone on this, has already decided to set sail. This is Columbus burning the ships when he arrived in the New World, because he knows that they're going to keep looking over their shoulder. So we're just going to do it. We're going to rip off the Band-Aid. We're going to be done with this. We're going to move on to this new tour, whatever it is. It's a new chapter. So I don't think Sergio is going to be alone. I don't know what the field's going to look like. To answer your question, it's probably not going to be a deep field, but I've said all along, they're not going to get the 48 players they want, but they'll get 48 players.
Yeah, they're going to get 48 players, and I could see a Westwood, Sergio, Phil, guys who have kind of made peace with their respective tours and decided to move on in that respective category. But I think there's going to be a whole lot of players who are going to be hanging back, waiting to see how the first one goes, waiting to see how the next couple goes, and then kind of a strength in numbers eventually jumping ship if they want to go that route.
Poor Jason driving for the first time.
He's like, man, you guys, I told you, I took the top of the bar off like 4 minutes ago, you buffoons.
What's the matter with you two baboons? Just be done with it. Move on. All right, we do have a tour event this week. It's AT&T
a good one,
Byron
a good
Nelson.
One too.
A very good one. The field is deep. Who are your favorites for the AT&T Byron Nelson?
I'm going to start with Justin Thomas. I know we're going to talk to Scottie in just a couple of minutes, but Justin Thomas, to me, is that guy who is due for a win. It's remarkable to me that he has now gone 14 months without a tour victory. We're kind of starting to say the same thing about Jon Rahm, right? Like he's been playing too consistently excellent. He's putting himself in the mix too many times. And what happens when he's approaching kind of the 1-year anniversary of his last win? He goes out and wins the Mexico Open. I can certainly see JT doing that as well. He's playing phenomenally well throughout the bag, 4th in strokes gained total, 6 top 10s this season. He's the kind of guy who I think could actually take the pressure off if he could notch a W before the year's second major, because we know when he gets in the major championships, his record has not been great. I think he's putting a lot of pressure on himself when he gets that first tee on Thursday. I think finally getting over that hump and getting a victory could do a lot for his confidence heading into the PGA Championship.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about Scottie Scheffler in a minute, and he would be atop both of our lists, I'm sure, when you look at what he's done so far this season. But the one I'm going to go with is the favorite, is Sam Burns. He finished runner-up here last year. That was the first time they stopped at TPC Craig Grant. So clearly he's comfortable on this golf course. He's won the season on the PGA Tour. He finished runner-up, granted, in a team event in New Orleans, but I would argue that he played very, very well in that event. And I just think right now he is one of those players that you could make an argument like Scottie Scheffler, like Patrick Cantlay, probably like Xander Schauffele to a certain degree, Colin Morikawa, that all they need is an average putting weight. He doesn't even need to putt great. Jon Rahm, yes. I mean, the ball striking is so good. I think there's a comfort level there with Sam that he needs an average putting weight, and he can go out and win by multiple strokes. And when you look at the way he's played this season, I see no reason that's going to change this week.
I would totally agree with you. Jason,
right.
Jason, follow along, man.
Slow on
the come up, and now he's.
Right.
What are we doing here? Haley,
right.
Haley, where are you?
It's rookie day. Yes, I get it. It's training day all over again. All right. So promise Scottie Scheffler. What are your expectations for Scottie Scheffler? This is his first individual event since winning the Masters. He did play New Orleans with a teammate, but this one's probably where he's going to maybe shake off some rust, I would guess.
I would think so. I mean, the Zurich was certainly a soft launch for him to kind of re-enter the professional landscape now that he's a major championship, and not just his career has changed forever, but I'm sure his personal life has as well. Wasn't a great week at the Zurich. I'm not sure how much that can be attributed to his play or how much his partner, Ryan Palmer, did little to help him out. However,
why would you say that?
I mean, I don't know. There's no stats. You can look at the scorecard. It's hard to say whether one guy played well or one guy kind of held him back. I don't know. All I know is that they didn't finish particularly well outside the top 15 for that event. For Scottie Scheffler individually, look, he's won 4 of his last 6 starts. He's doing everything well. His confidence has never been higher. There's all sorts of reports now about his practice round last week at Southern Hills, which he has called one of his favorite golf courses in the world. Shot basically an effortless 64 to kind of ratchet up expectations that he can go back-to-back in the major championships this year. Yeah, I think he's going to play well in front of the home crowd on a gettable golf course. I see little reason to believe that he won't be in the mix on Sunday for this title as well.
Well, and to your point, and we have this conversation all the time, like, what, did he forget how to play when he took a couple weeks off after the Masters? I mean,
that's not how it works.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Now, I'm not saying that this form continues forever, that at some point, everybody not named Tiger Woods comes back down to earth, even if that coming back down to earth is just finishing inside the top 10 and not winning. I just think the parity on the PGA Tour makes it difficult to continue at this pace. So he does come back down eventually, but I don't know why it would be this week or next week at the PGA Championship. As you pointed out, there's a comfort level at Southern Hills that we're going to have to look at very, very hard going into next week. Just a spoiler alert, he's probably going to be my favorite next week as well, simply because everything he's done so far this season, or at least the last few months, suggests that he's unbeatable when he's on his game. I just don't know who would beat him.
I totally agree with you, Rex. I mean, he's riding a confidence high. And look, you're right. This is going to crash at some point. It's not to say that he's suddenly going to start missing every cut that he plays, but he's not going to, when 4 of his last 6 starts in perpetuity, because no one besides Tiger Woods has been able to do that over the past 25 years.
No one's going to accuse you and I of being prisoners of the moment, so we're going to take a moment to look ahead to next week. Who needs a big week going into the PGA Championship?
Well, look, I would have said Brooks Koepka. This is a player who, in the 3 biggest tournaments of the year so far, and that's the Genesis Invitational, the Players Championship, and the Masters, he missed the cut in all 3 of those events. His ball striking has not been very good at all. 42nd was his worst strokes gained tee to green numbers over the course of his career. He's currently outside the top 100, and yet early Wednesday morning, he announced that he was withdrawing from the AT&T Byron Nelson. No reason was given. I'm currently awaiting a message back from his manager. So in absence of that, and I think his status for the PGA Championship now has to be in doubt, I would say Dustin Johnson. He's started to play a little bit better. The Saudi distraction behind him, 3 of his last 5 starts have gone for T12s or better. However, just like Brooks Koepka, his ball striking is not what we're accustomed to seeing. Dustin Johnson, Rex, is ranked 156th on tour in greens and regulation. I mean, iron play is the greatest determinant of how a player is going to perform on the PGA Tour. He's just not hitting enough greens. I mean, that's a shockingly low number for a player of his caliber, who is still ranked 11th in the world. So I want to see Dustin Johnson a good week this week at the Byron Nelson, because he's a big game hunter, has proven that over the past 10 and 15 years. And you'd like to see him in the mix at the PGA as well.
To your point about DJ, and I don't have the stats in front of me, but I don't know that his driving is all that great right now either.
25th on tour in strokes gained off the tee. So I mean, it's not terrible. It's also not as great of an advantage that he has enjoyed over the last 5 to 10 years. Yeah.
So I would argue that there's a knock-on effect with his ball striking, just overall. That if you're going to struggle off the tee,
156 in greens hit is crazy low.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. I'm going to go with, and you mentioned him earlier, I'm going to go with JT. And here's the deal. You mentioned how long it's been since he was in the winner's circle, and it doesn't get easier. We had this conversation about Jordan Spieth recently. We've certainly had this conversation over the last few years with Rory McIlroy. You can say that, he's won before, he knows how to do this. But the further you get away from that victory, and look, for JT, that last victory was a really good one at the Players Championship, but we're more than a year removed now. And I just think at some point, you talked about pressure. I think he starts putting that same pressure on himself week in and week out to be the player he wants to be. This is the same guy that when I asked him last season to put a grade on your season, it was a flat D, and that was with the Players Championship victory. So I can't imagine the level of anxiety, the level of aggravation that he has right now inside of him, because not winning, that bugs him. And look, it's not as though he's playing terrible. He finished tied for 3rd in Tampa a few weeks ago. He finished inside the top 10 at the Masters. I don't know that he was ever really in the hunt at Augusta National, but he's playing well enough, but something is just missing. So going into this particular major that he has won before, I think this is probably the one where he feels the most comfort. I think he needs to see something to have some sort of form going into next week.
Totally agree. He is due as players can possibly get. Rex, say something nice about our producer, Haley. This is her last day
Haley Luke.
Doing writer's block for her. She's moving on.
She's not doing it. She's not here.
I know. We still have to say something nice. We know she's going to watch. I mean, she's a dedicated writer's block viewer. She's moving on to the Big Ten Network for some reason. I'm not sure why she wouldn't try and work for the SEC, which is the more dominant conference. But look, I wish her luck covering the Buckeyes and doing all sorts of Michigan things. Say something nice about Haley.
Haley, you're the best. She's going to miss you. Single tear. You were the best, and I don't know why you're going to the Big Ten Network either.
Haley, thanks for putting up with us over the past couple months. You've been a good friend. You've been a good confidant. You've been a lot of fun to be around. Best of luck in your future endeavors. I know you'll crush it.
And you made us better. Thank you so much. That's going to be it for Writer's Block. We will see you Sunday night before you and I get on a plane to go to the PGA Championship. Until then, check out golfchannel.com.